Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. I am Dr. Portia Jackson with the City of Houston's Office of Business Opportunity, and we are so glad that you have joined us for the MD Anderson HUB Construction Contractor Guide presentation. A lot of information is going to be shared today so that we can make sure that everyone is able to hear. If you are not speaking, please just make sure you have your phones on mute so we don't catch that background noise. Also, we are going to have time for Q&A at the end, so feel free to reserve your questions until then. But if you have a burning question or they say something and you have a question at that time, feel free to put that in the chat. Someone will be monitoring the chat and we'll make sure that we get all of your answers, all of your questions answered. And as always, take every opportunity when you are on these webinars to network. So that means utilize that chat to introduce yourself. Tell us give us your name, your company, what do you sell? What are your services? You never know who's online that can benefit and you can partner with. So utilize the chat. Go ahead and introduce yourself now on the chat and throughout the webinar, and so everybody can know. And then at the end, when you participate in the Q&A, if you decide to verbalize your question, lead with that. My name is Portia Jackson. I'm with the City of Houston, and then ask your question. That always helps us and gives you an opportunity to showcase your business. If you do not know about the City of Houston's Office of Business Opportunity, we are an advocate for our small businesses, connecting you with the resources that you need and the education through webinars like this one and our various business development programs to help you to start, grow, and scale your business. And I am just so happy to introduce our folks today, MD Anderson and Rob Rowski. I hope I said it right. If not, you'll correct me when Daryl introduces you, and then Daryl Samuels. They are partnering with us. HUB certification is so important, and definitely when you're working in the state space and with our anchor institutions. And so we are glad to have partner with MD Anderson and then Gabriella Zambrano. So wherever she goes, she's a partner because she's just a great person. So wherever she's at, you know that you are always in good hands. So I am going to turn it over to Daryl. Yes. And Daryl, you will have the floor and it is yours.
Actually, I'm gonna turn it over to Bob. I'm just a page flipper.
That's not entirely true. He actually has a lot of important tips to share with you all, but I'll kick us off as our MC here. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you the new MD Anderson Historically Unutilized Business Construction Contractor Guide. We are excited to share this new document with you. Daryl?
It's that I think we've hit the
proverbial wall, huh? Okay. Let's give it another second.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, there we go. All right, fantastic.
All right.
All right, the development of this guide was coordinated by the MD Anderson HUB and Federal Small Business Program, and joining us today, as was mentioned by Dr. Jackson, is Gabrielle Zambrano, who is an Associate Director with that group. And MD Anderson Facilities Planning, Design, Construction contributed to the development of the guide. And joining us today from that group, I believe, are Jay Moranti, who's a Director of Major Capital Projects, and Jim Waters, who's a Director of Facilities Project Contract and Control Services. And MD Anderson Sourcing and Contract Management also contributed to the development of the guide. And today we have John Roth, who's the Associate Director, Sourcing and Contract Management, on the call with us. And then finally, your presenters today are myself, Bob Rowski. I'm an owner of Bob Rowski PLC, and my associate, Daryl Samuels, who's a managing partner with D. Samuels and Associates LLC. I'm an architect with over 40 years of experience in design and construction, including 30 years as an owner's representative managing major capital projects for the University of Texas system. Daryl has over 25 years assisting owners, general contractors, and trade contractors builds financial capacity and expertise, and is himself a state of Texas certified HUB construction contractor. We had the privilege of working with MD Anderson to create this guide.
Hold on. Okay.
There we go. All right. Our agenda today is to review the new document with you. We will not be able to cover all the comprehensive information in the guide. It's quite a lot of information in there, but we're going to try to do is flip through the pages and zoom in on some key topics. And we're also going to share some tips on working on construction projects at MD Anderson. And then, of course, we want to answer your questions. So as Dr. Jackson mentioned, please type them into the chat function, and we will probably catch them at the end. That might be more effective. So let's get started. Here is the new MD Anderson HUB Construction Contractor Guide. And as I said, we're going to flip through the guide and zoom in on some key topics. For those of you unfamiliar with MD Anderson, the guide begins with some important information about the organization. MD Anderson is one of the world's most respected centers focused on cancer patient care, research, education, and prevention. It is part of the University of Texas system and only one of 51 comprehensive cancer centers designated by the National Cancer Institute. Their mission is to eliminate cancer in Texas, the nation, and the world through their outstanding programs. And their vision is to be the premier cancer center in the world. And that is supported by their core values of caring, integrity, discovery, safety, and stewardship. So that provides you with information on who MD Anderson is. Now let's look at what is included in their new guide. We turn to the table of contents, and you can see that the guide contains a great deal of information that we hope is helpful and informative about their construction program. So we'll start by reviewing the introductory information at the beginning of the guide. One helpful thing is that the electronic version of the guide, which is going to be provided to the attendees today, has an interactive table of contents. So you go to what you want to find in the guide, you click on that item, and it takes you directly to that section without you having to flip through it. So that's, I think, pretty handy. So we'll start with the first item, which is a letter from the Associate Vice President, MD Anderson Supply Chain Management. And in this letter, Mr. Calvin Wright provides a welcome to the guide and talks about talks about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion at MD Anderson. He says that MD Anderson is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that they are constantly looking for innovative ways to engage and utilize more HUB suppliers. This is important because they need HUB partners to help them deliver their construction and renovation projects. They're projected to spend $1.4 billion in the next several years, and so they strongly encourage HUB suppliers to participate in their procurement process. After the letter from Vice President Wright comes the welcome section of the guide. And the first topic is, who is this guide for? The guide is intended to be for comprehensive and is for contractors working at any construction tier, including prime general contractors, first tier subcontractors, second tier subcontractors, third tier, as well as personnel, material, and equipment vendors. After that section, the next section describes the purpose of the guide. The guide is intended to inform HUB contractors regarding the unique requirements for MD Anderson construction projects, as well as the opportunities and benefits that are available. And it's organized into 3 chapters that sequentially walk you through what you need to know if you're considering seeking work with MD Anderson. First chapter is recommendations, what to know if you're considering seeking work, recommendations for putting together a winning bid or proposal, and how to successfully and profitably execute the work. And so the topics are organized in this way and were developed, as we mentioned, with input from MD Anderson staff, as well as contractors who have been successful working on construction projects, both for UT System and for MD Anderson. And you will see that some topics in the guide repeat themselves, and that is because the folks we interviewed said, make sure and stress this. This is important. And so you'll see certain topics are repeated through the guide with emphasis related to that section, whether it's seeking, winning, or executing. So that's who the guide is for and what its purpose is. So let's go on to a highlight topic of importance, which is at MD Anderson, it's very important to them that while they're delivering the capital program, that they sustain a positive patient experience and that the construction projects do not impact that patient experience. So for this topic, I'm going to ask Daryl to step in and share some tips from having completed construction projects at MD Anderson. Daryl?
Okay. Well, what I can tell you is that my experience is that a lot of you may have known me from a consulting perspective, but I also do install specialty items as my side hustle. And so I've done a couple of projects with MD Anderson, UT System, and then also with UT in Galveston. And the importance of it is that what I've learned is that the most important thing we're working with, with MD Anderson is that you have to sustain the patient experience. In order to do that, is that to work with MD Anderson is that you have to demonstrate that it's not about what you know, it's about how much you care, and especially that if you have people that are in the hospitals are relatives and so forth, is that you want to make sure that they got the best care possible, and that really includes how the building is built. And some tips I can give you is that when you are seeking work with MD Anderson, is that focus on your reputation and the patient experience. Is that you want to make sure that that patient has the best experience possible. It's that be a creative problem solver. Is that the projects are not cut and dry, and that in some cases you're going to have to make allowances and you're going to have to make quick decisions. And so that with MD Anderson is not only are you working with if you're a specialty trade subcontractor like what I do, is that you're not only working with the general contractor, but you're also maybe working with MD Anderson officials as well. And that you have to be involved with solving problems, and you got to be creative about it. Like I said, it's a collaborative effort. It's not you by yourself and you just go in and do the work. Is that you're going to be working with a team that consists of you and your crew, your general contractor if you're a subcontractor, and then also MD Anderson officials as well. And that what you want to be able to focus on is that MD Anderson and the general contractors are looking for long-term relationships. Is that if you understand the MD Anderson system, which is very, very extensive, and that you have the proper back order and able to not only do the work, but also provide the paperwork that's needed to justify the work, is that you want to prove that you know what you're doing and that you want a long-term relationship. And that, remember, I can tell you from my own personal experiences that I've had a couple of family members that have cancer and have died from cancer. And so that knowing what they go through is that you want to make sure that they are very, very comfortable when they're receiving services, because it is your work that they are counting on. And so that I can't emphasize it enough, is that you want to make the experience as pleasurable for the patient as possible, because I hate to tell you this, is that it may be, one of your relatives that might be using the services that are using a room that you have built. And so you want to make sure that it's top quality. So with that, I will turn it back over to Bob.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for sharing those personal experiences. So as we turn the page, the next thing the guide talks about is how MD Anderson supports competitive procurement and how to find out about their construction contracting opportunities. And you will find hyperlinks in the guide, in the electronic version, that when you click on them, they'll take you straight to the various internet resources. And so this link will take you to the page for doing business with MD Anderson, if you click on it. And then when you scroll down that page on doing business, you'll see a section that says for vendors and suppliers, that includes a link to current bids. Click on that. It will take you to that page. It says current bids. All MD Anderson bids are submitted electronically, so that's something important to know. And then, so to submit a bid or proposal, you'd click on View Online Public Bids, which takes you to this page, and that will have a list of the current bids or proposal opportunities where you can download information regarding the project. If you're interested and want to pursue it, you'd click on Respond Now. And that then takes you to the supplier management portal where you can enter your vendor registration information, which we will talk about in a little bit. And then that's where you submit your bid or proposal. So also on that same page is information regarding the delivery of construction projects at MD Anderson and who is responsible for managing that delivery. That responsibility belongs to the Facilities, Planning, Design, and Construction Department, or FPDC, as they are also known. And as I mentioned, joining us here today are Jay Moranti, Director of Major Capital Projects, and Jim Waters, Director, Facilities, Project Contract, and Control Services. So if you have questions for them, please queue those up and they'll be ready to answer. So MD Anderson completes projects of all sizes via their FPDC department, including redevelopment of existing research and clinical space, upgrades to the campus infrastructure, new construction, and major renovation. The construction types include infrastructure, vertical construction, site work, and interiors projects. And they use several different methods to deliver those projects, including construction manager at risk, design build contract services, job order contracting. And each of those methods, delivery methods, is described later in the guide, and the detailed steps of procurement or the hiring process for each of them are provided in the back of the guide as well, so that you can understand that better. So that is who manages the design and construction of projects, but the procurement, the hiring process falls under a different group, and that is sourcing and contract management. Is it pause, Daryl, or?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, there we go. Let's keep rolling. So as I mentioned, we have John Roth on the line with us today, and he can answer questions that you may have regarding the procurement or hiring process for contracts at MD Anderson. And as I mentioned, more information about those processes is provided later in the guide. So next, the guide continues with information about the importance of hub participation to MD Anderson and takes us to the MD Anderson Hub and Federal Small Business Program, which includes a link to their webpage, as you see here. Click on that link. And also, as I mentioned, we have Gabrielle Zambrano on the line with us here today, available to answer questions. Barbara Howard is also with that group. She wasn't able to participate, but they are the ones who can answer your questions about hub participation on contracts and help you with completing that information. So as we continue on, the next thing the guide talks about is what MD Anderson values in their capital projects. MD Anderson recognizes the value of diversity in the workplace and equal opportunity and access to construction contracts. They also value individual workers and their safety and have a robust safety program that we'll talk about later. and they value partners who will help them be efficient and effective in their construction project delivery program. They also want you to know that they believe there are several advantages of working on construction contracts for MD Anderson. Those contracts provide the opportunity to work on important projects that benefit patients, students, faculty, staff, and the health and well-being of the community. They provide the opportunity to work for a fair-minded owner who understands the challenges of construction. They provide a guarantee of payment for compliant work, and they provide an opportunity to leverage successful contracts to win future work. So this guide is provided to assist HUB contractors to realize these advantages. So that takes us through the end of the introductory section of the guide. So if anything that we just covered there brings questions to mind, please type those into the chat. And let's go ahead and move on, go back to our table of contents. And we go next to Chapter 1, Seeking Construction Contracts with MD Anderson. So the first subsection under Chapter 1 talks about HUB certification. MD Anderson is a state of Texas entity, and therefore encourages you to obtain certification as a HUB from the state of Texas, which you can do at the state comptroller's office via the link shown here. And then once you have that certification, they ask that you please be mindful about it and make sure that it remains active. Also on that page is information, as I mentioned, we get back to, which is how to become a registered vendor or supplier with MD Anderson. So if you click on the link that's on that page, it takes you to the web page where vendors and suppliers can register. You scroll down that page and you'll see where it says how to register, and that you can submit your information there that will allow you then to subsequently submit your bids or proposals. Continuing with Chapter 1, next page has recommendations regarding business systems and processes that contractors are recommended to have in place if they are considering seeking work with MD Anderson, including accounting systems, business insurance coverage. And then also on this page is information about UT Systems' Rolling Owner Controlled Insurance Program, also known as ROSIP. And sometimes this program can create some confusion for folks. And so I'm going to ask Daryl to share with us his knowledge about the program and the tips he's learned to work with it. Daryl?
All right, Bob, thanks. Mainly what I can tell you is that with ROSIP, which is a Rolling Owner Controlled Insurance Program, is that although that you have insurance with your agent, is that you have to roll your insurance over to the ROSIP program. And what I can tell you from personal experience is that don't attempt to do this by yourself. Is that one thing that I discovered on the projects I've worked with is that you have to turn this over to your insurance agent. They have a better understanding of it, but you've got to make sure that your insurance agent understands the ROSIP requirements as well. If not, it's going to be the blind leading the blind. When I do the ROSIP, first thing I do is call Antoinette at Marsh and ask for training on their automated system. Is that everything is automated now and you have to upload information into the system. And I try to keep abreast of any changes that are made so that I can make this process as easy and seamless as possible. I let my insurance agent handle the initial transaction. I just make sure that Antoinette and my agent are talking to one another and that they have everything they need from me, and then I just get out of the way. And then, once you get everything set up, is that you have to upload that information into the system on a regular basis to make sure that you're current. I can tell you is that just from personal experience is that it is a very difficult process, and especially if you do not understand insurance. So I'll just reiterate is that ROSIP is a requirement of the program and that you cannot get started on the project, even though that you may have won a contract. But if you don't have ROSIP in place, you won't be starting anytime soon on that project. And so with that, I would say that connecting with Antoinette is a must. So that's my contact. I'm going to share that, drop her name. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Daryl. it is challenging the first time and understanding how to get enrolled in the program, but thereafter, as Daryl mentioned, you're just required to upload information on a recurring basis. And so, but he has been through this more than once, and so those are very valuable tips. Thanks, Daryl. So we're going to continue to flip through the guide here. As I mentioned, we're not going to be able to talk about everything that's in here in detail, but I want to let you know that Chapter 1 continues the recommendations regarding internal administrative processes that contractors should have in place, staffing and staff development and financial requirements, recommendations regarding working capital, cash flow, bonding. It provides suggestions for marketing, talks about how to assemble your work portfolio, networking, relationship management, project tracking. And then in this first chapter, it touches briefly on construction safety, so contractors can understand what to expect if they seek projects with MD Anderson. We'll talk in much more detail about construction safety later in the guide. And then Chapter 1 concludes with information about business resources for construction contractors, including information about training and mentor-protege programs. And so if one of those topics that we just ran through quickly there brings a question to mind, please type that also into the Microsoft Teams chat, and we will try to answer that for you. So returning to our table of contents, we can click and go to Chapter 2, which is titled Putting Together a Winning Bid or Proposal. So Chapter 2 begins with recommendations for contractors to identify their competitive focus and to decide whether they want to work as a prime or general contractor, or as a first, second, or third tier subcontractor or supplier. Chapter 2 continues talking further about the importance of relationship management. This stage where you're putting together a proposal, that's working on your relationship if you're a subcontractor with the prime contractor to make sure that you're communicating adequately. This chapter also provides continues to provide information about project tracking and then how to access project information and documents. And we showed you earlier that that's all online. It also explains that the project documents may include specific requirements related to working on a medical campus. And these requirements may include limitations regarding when work can occur based on time of day or day of week or day of the year, limitations on project access for construction staff and materials, and special noise, dust, and infection control requirements. So once again, Daryl has worked within this environment. So Daryl, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, it's tough to work in an environment, in a hospital construction environment, simply because that you may be in an active project where you have patients in the room. And so my advice to you is, like they say in the Boy Scouts and the Lion King, be prepared. One is that when you go into an MD Anderson project, be conscientious of your environment, because you may have patients, you may have doctors, you may have staff that's working on the project. So before you go in, what I do is develop a work plan to make sure that my team understands what we need to do and how we need to do it. And then we meet with the superintendent and sometimes even with the MD Anderson UT officials to discuss a work plan of how we're going to carry out the work that we're going to do on a day-to-day basis. You got to understand the importance of dust control, is that you want to minimize that as much as possible, because again, we are reiterating the patient experience. Is that you also have to focus on noise control. Is that I have found that it is better to work with electric battery operated tools as opposed to power drills and so forth, because I've got to reduce noise as much as possible. And you got to have flexibility, is that you may get callbacks. I had a situation in Galveston where we had a call, we installed refrigerators in hospital rooms, and I got a call that one of the refrigerators was malfunctioning, and so me and a team went there to replace it. And that we, even though that we checked in with the superintendent, he didn't tell us that, what was going on. So when we walked to the room that we needed to replace the refrigerator, is that they were performing surgery. And so as a result is that we had, it prevented us from doing what we need to do, but it's kind of embarrassing because we're walking into a live situation, and that, we may have done more damage than what we had intended, what we thought was simply just to do a replacement, is that we may have put that patient in harm because we were not sanitized to work in that environment. So with that, that's just something that you need to be very conscientious about. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Daryl. So Chapter 2, we can continue on, provides a detailed description of procurement requirements for the different construction delivery methods that we talked about earlier. And then it provides references to the appendix where it has the flow charts that show how each of those hiring or procurement processes work, so you can understand better what the process is. It includes very detailed recommendations regarding proposal preparation. And then provides a more detailed review of the construction safety requirements that were just mentioned in Chapter 1. So the contractors are aware of and can make sure to include the full cost of participation in the program in their bids or proposals. So the safety program is very robust, and so once again, I'm going to ask Daryl he's worked within it to talk about what he's learned and his tips meeting the safety requirements and participating in the program.
All right, thanks, Bob. The safety requirement is that safety is job one. I know that's a commercial, but it goes back to safety isn't expensive, it's priceless. Is that anything that you do at MD Anderson is safety is going to be the #1 priority. Is that it is required that your crew members have 10-hour OSHA training. It is required that your foremen or superintendents have 30 hours OSHA training. Is that a construction safety program is provided when you are talking to the general contractor and the and the MD Anderson officials, is that it is good to have a version of your safety program on you so that you can discuss that you are fully aware of the safety program requirements, which is basically going to be discussed in your orientation before you get on the job. It's best to have an in-house safety staff position is typically required. Somebody in your company has to be designated as the safety person for your company. Is that frequent safety meetings are required. One of the things that we do with our crew is that even though that we have 10 and 30-hour OSHA training, is that it is always good to go through the general contractors and MD Anderson safety programs as well, just to demonstrate that you are conscientious and that you're a team player and you understand that safety is a priority. And then what we do, we've made it a corporate policy that safety is important, and that we require our employees to get certified in OSHA on a regular basis, even though that they may have their OSHA 10 and 30. We did nothing bad with having a refresher, just to make sure that, and we emphasize to our clients that we are safety oriented. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Bob.
Great, Daryl. And I think you mentioned that you have organized your own corporate company safety plan around the owners, so that way you know you're meeting their requirements.
Right, is that MD Anderson is a tough nut, and so that you might as well put a premium safety program in place, because is that if you do that and implement it, that makes you attractive to other contractors and owners as well, because that you've made safety at the primary focus in your business operations.
Right. Thanks, Daryl. So Chapter 2 talks further about the administrative responsibilities that you'll be required to perform. So once again, you can make sure that you include the staff costs in your bids or proposals. It provides an explanation for how your proposal is going to be evaluated, which is often a big question mark for folks who have not pursued work before, is how will your bid be reviewed and evaluated? And then that concludes Chapter 2. So again, if any of those topics, we went through them pretty quickly again, sorry about that, but if any of those topics trigger some questions, please, today is the day. Put your questions in the chat function and we want to make sure and answer them for you so that you will have those, any concerns you may have allayed, and then you'll be interested in pursuing the work. So back to our table of contents, we now go to Chapter 3, which is the longest and most detailed chapter of the guide, Successfully Executing the Work. And we click on Chapter 3. So once again, Chapter 3 begins with the topic of relationship management. Here it is this time at the level of the construction site, and making sure that you're maintaining your relationship if you're a sub with the prime contractor's field staff. Talks about construction-related updates to the project information and documents, making sure that you know how to get the most current documents for the portion of the work that you're going to be constructing. Continues the conversation about staffing requirements and administrative responsibilities, including execution of the construction agreement, insurance, labor requirements, meetings, project work plans. And under project work plans, it advises that MD Anderson project management staff will be actively engaged in the development of construction work plans so that they can help assure that patient experience that we talked about earlier is sustained. And so I'd like to ask Daryl to talk further about owner collaboration and project execution.
Planning plus preparation plus execution equals project success. I say that because you are part of a team, and as that team is that you've got to make sure that you're in constant communication, not only with the GC that you report to, but also the MD Anderson staff that's been assigned to the project. And so with that, what I can advise you is that when I said have a work plan, is that have that in place, but also you have to plan your work with the MD Anderson personnel. So they're aware of what you're doing. And some things that I do is I actually go through the work breakdown structure and go from all the way from A to Z of how we are going to do the job to make sure that they understand this is the processes that we're going to use in moving forward and completing the job on time and within budget. I really focus on relationship management because, again, like I said earlier, is I'm looking for a long-term relationship. And a lot of times is that if you have a good rapport with the MD Anderson personnel, is that they'll say, hey, I like Daryl and I like Daryl's crew. And then, you know, they can put the word out for you with the general contractor or any other general contractor on the project that they may want to look at us as possibly doing their installs for them, because that we're thorough and we do what we do and we do it well. Is that communication is the key, is that constant communication is important, even though that you think you might be pestering or that you're being repetitive, it's okay. Is that you want to make sure that you understand and that you are being understood on what you're doing on this project. Paperwork is important, is that a lot of our contractors feel and neglect the paperwork, is that when you are dealing with an MD Anderson project, is that there is an extensive paperwork. Not only the pay app, there are other support documents that you need to provide, and you got to have a person on staff that is thoroughly immersed in the paperwork so that you can make sure that you're meeting not only the compliance requirements, is that you want to make sure that you are also meeting, you know, the pay application, because you want to be paid on time. So if you don't do the paperwork, you don't get paid. And then finally is that following directions is important, is that even though that you may not agree with what is being said, is that once the decisions are made by the MD Anderson personnel, is that we have to follow it. If you have a collaboration, you are, with a team, and that as a team approach is that you have to follow what has been agreed upon. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Daryl. So Chapter 3 continues.
So we go.
With information on construction submittals, site access, site and material management, record documents, and then in Chapter 3, we have the most detailed information regarding the owner's construction safety program with several sub-headings, including training and certification, site-specific safety plan, safety kickoff meeting, equipment, hazard identification, and incident response. Chapter 3 also includes information about construction schedules, including liquidated damages and schedule maintenance and recovery. And then it provides some very detailed information about construction payments, including the payment application format, pay when paid clauses, and how much time to anticipate to receive payment. And this is also often a question. So we included a time to payment graph inside the guide. We click on that. Excuse me, that shows that depending on what tier the contractor is working, it can take between 50 to 57 days from when they submit their pay application for a first tier subcontractor to receive payment, and between 60 to 67 days for a second tier subcontractor to receive payment. And that is due to the pay app, when you submit your invoice, that doesn't start the clock. It needs to get reviewed by the general contractor if you're a subcontractor. And then once they're satisfied with it, they review it with the owner's field representative, and then it goes in and the 30-day payment clock starts. The owner then has 30 days to make payment. Once the prime receives payment, they then have 10 additional days to get payment to their first tier subs, and then the first tier subs have another 10 days to pay their second tier subs. And so that's something to be aware of and mindful of, because it may impact the need for working capital for the project until payment is received.
There we go.
Chapter 3 continues by describing payment retainage. So you need to be aware that 5% of each pay app is retained by the owner until the work is completed. The topic of construction inspections is covered, including quality requirements and rework. Chapter 3 talks about changes in the work, including change pricing and change implementation. And then it concludes with project closeout, including final inspections, audit, closeout documentation, and insurance closeout. And then after Chapter 3, we have a summary of the document, thanking contractors for their interest in MD Anderson capital construction projects. Then we go back one last time to the table of contents and go to the appendices section. I mentioned the guide includes several process flow charts and other example documents that get referenced in the guide. So this is where you can flip back to and look at those example documents. The first appendix is actually not that. It's an acknowledgement of the contractors and the owner project delivery representatives who contributed the information for the guide that we talked about initially. And then the next appendix, Appendix 2, provides the flow chart for MD Anderson's process for hiring a construction manager at risk. Appendix 3 provides the same information for the hiring of a design build general contractor. Appendix 4 shows the process for hiring general construction services. Appendix 5 shows the process for hiring job order contractors. And then also included under Appendix 6 is a sample matrix showing how the best value construction manager at risk is identified by MD Anderson during that selection process. Appendix 7 shows a sample worksheet for how a prime or general contractor compares subcontractor pricing. Appendix 8 shows a sample worksheet for how prime or general contractors evaluate subcontractor qualifications. Appendix 9 shows the MD Anderson online progress assessment report second tier reporting system for prime contractors to record HUB participation on their contracts. And then the final appendix, Appendix 10, provides a brief glossary of terms and abbreviations that are used throughout the guide. So that very quickly is the MD Anderson HUB Construction Contractor Guide. What I'd like to do is ask Daryl to come back one last time and talk about his experience actually using the guide for his business. Daryl?
Sure. Is that using the guide is that just, I'm a card player, so you got to come big or stay home. And what I mean by that is that, you're not going to get any document that's more thorough and as explain the processes better than this document. Is that one of the things that I've done since I've been working on this project Bob's been about 2, well, maybe 3 years, is that what I have done is use this model to restructure, or actually use this guide to restructure my business model, and using the guide to realign our procurement policies and procedures. And so as a result is that I've gotten a lot positive feedback from a number of the contractors that I've worked with, is that because that I have a thorough understanding of the processes and what's being required, and so that it helps. The other aspect of it is that we use the document in our training when we bring on new employees, and then also when we're actively pursuing projects, is that we use the guide as a training tool to teach our staff procurement do's and don'ts. And then the other thing that we do is that we are actively pursuing work at MD Anderson. I would say that by having this guide in place and looking at the resources available and the relationships that have been developed, is that it doesn't necessarily that we have to do the biggest project, but MD Anderson provides opportunities that for small contractors is that you can enter in as a job order contractor and then work your way up the system, and so that you will eventually land those larger projects. Because the way that MD Anderson is designed is that you have different level of contracts and projects, and you have different people that are required, that are responsible for that. So you're not dealing with just one person overall for procurement. You might be working with at least 3 to 5 different people, because there's different levels of construction at MD Anderson. You just have to pick what is the best entry point for you. And then from there, I'll turn it over to you, Bob. I have no more to say about my experience at MD Anderson. I think it has been great and wonderful. I'm looking for other opportunities and how we can work with others to share the information that we are providing.
Great, thank you, Daryl. And I think with that, we'll turn it back we'll turn it over to Gabriella so that she can introduce or reintroduce the folks, MD Anderson folks on the line, who can answer your questions. I may have left someone out. Was Suzanne able to join us today?
I don't believe and actually
okay.
John
Right.
Roth is not there. I forgot that he's with Barbara. So again, everybody, Gabriela Zambrano, and with the Associate Director for the HUB and Small Business Program. I'm very excited to be here. And the City of Houston OBO, if you don't know anything about me, this used to be my office like 3 companies ago. So I'm very excited always to be here and share. As a former certification officer, I know some of you are certified with the city, so make sure that you also get your HUB certification either via the city of Houston or the state of Texas. But before I continue, I want to make sure that I give a chance to my other colleagues from FPDC. Let me see, I saw them earlier, but Jim, there we go. Jim, would you like to say a few words, or Jay? Jim, you're on mute, but it's okay.
How about if I unmute? Does that work better?
That works a lot better.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah, one of the things I just wanted to emphasize is that when we do, like anybody else, when we do a traditional approach, general construction services contract, the general contractor will bring the team of subcontractors with them when they submit their proposal. So you want to network with the general contractors if you're a trade specialty subcontractor to be involved in those. All of our other projects, whether they be design, build, CMA, risk, or job order contracting, we fully expect the contractors who we have under contract for those services to competitively bid for any subcontract trades that they need. And that could be anything. It could be plumbing, electrical, sometimes communications, sometimes it's cleaning, final cleaning of spaces, things like that. So the opportunities are out there within the community, construction community, to get involved in projects that way. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. You don't have to be a design build contractor to begin working in MD Anderson.
Thank you, Jim. What about you, Jay? Any words of wisdom?
Hi, everyone. Well, Gabriella, just very excited about the initiative in general. I think the outreach that we're doing here is absolutely necessary. The amount of work that we have, I used to say the amount of work that we have coming, but it's here. You know, these projects, these major projects are already in motion. And just a word of advice to folks, to work as closely as you can with Gabriella and her team. Get your company information to her. We're providing these lists to our general contractors so that when the time comes to buy out these projects and look for subcontractors, you know, they've got a running start. So just to emphasize that, it's extremely important, and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, and I want to reiterate, everybody, please send me an email. Those who are subcontractors, because we are definitely compiling a list to include all the subcontractors out there that are HUB certified, because as you know, we're a state agency, so we want to make sure that we fulfill our state goals. So we have from kitchen design, I mean, they're always challenging me to look for different hubs that are out there. So please make sure you include. Speaking about networking with primes, I do have somebody here, and I'm gonna totally put him on the spot. Hopefully he's there. Andrew Reno, are you there?
I am here.
Do you mind saying a few words? I know Turner Constructions has a few projects with MD Anderson, so.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Reno. I am the Community and Citizenship Director for Turner Construction here in Houston. And like Gabriella said, we have a couple projects coming up with MD Anderson that we're very, very excited about. We're looking to have those projects start in the first and second quarters of 2023. So this is a perfect time to start your networking, start reaching out to me. I would love to talk to you, get to know you, and see what we can do to help you get on one of these projects. Other than that, we know other contractors. We just don't want you to work just for us. We want you to work for everyone. So give me a call. I'll put in my information in the chat. Give me a call. We'd love to set up a meet and greet with you to meet our project team, procurement team, and our pre-con team. So we set it up every Tuesdays and every Friday. So look forward to hearing from you.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew. And, you know, he's been a great partner working with Turner. We actually meet monthly to make sure that we share each other like HUB information. I know Hirendra Patel asked a question. I don't know if I can help him. It says, any info on our upcoming projects by value of construction costs? I don't know what that means. Maybe Jay or Jim? No?
Sure. Well, I imagine he's asking about the size and scale of the projects, and I can tell you this, that our projects run from the smallest of small to the largest of large. I mean, everything from a small room office renovation up to, and I think Bob alluded to this earlier, we're into the billions of dollars in this capital program. So we've got projects to suit all size firms, all capabilities. And I want to emphasize too Gabriella's last point that she made about specialty firms. If you've got a niche, you know, we're looking for those types of opportunities to pull those folks in. You might be surprised. You know, we can likely find a spot here or there within a project where that suits your specialty.
Thank you, Jay. Bye. Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can tell you, but since I started, we said the next 18 months, we are right now in those 18 months, which was $1.4 billion, and we have more projects coming our way. But I will definitely start working with the projects that are out now. Like Andrew was saying, it's going to start like at the end of this year, start like meeting with people, so start networking, meeting with them. Please make sure to send me an email. I don't know how much I can stress you about this. Make sure you have your HUB certification in place. Use the guide. The guide can tell you the difference between, I'm going to give you a lot of acronyms out there, IDIQ, JOCs, you know, GCS, like DB, CMR. So just make sure that you understand each of those concepts, and all of those type of projects are at the end of the guide. They'll give you the exactly what you're talking about. Somebody's asking, does this construction project usually have an IT component included? Yes, they do. They do have IT components. Normally, do they work with the A&Es? No, they work with all of them, right? I can't even. I know that I recruit for all of them, so I can't remember which one uses the most. But yes, because think about it. So if you when you walk into a hospital, think about everything that, you know, a hospital, a clinic, a building that MD Anderson might use. You know, think about computer, beds, anything that you can think of, right? But when you start building, it's first the core and shell, and then you start kind of going inside a little bit. And of course, I think COVID and everybody now knows, you know, you need IT in all the different forms that there is available. So yes, we do have those opportunities. So please feel free to reach out to it. But also MD Anderson is actually investing a lot in IT itself besides construction. So I definitely encourage you to go and sign up and become a supplier, look at the bids. They're always coming up for new things. Attend the pre-bid meetings. Sometimes the subject doesn't really reflect what is it about, and at the pre-bid meetings you can ask specific questions. And I say this because sometimes I'll pop in and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is not exactly what I thought they were talking about. So it's always good to attend this pre-bid meeting, and I'll say for all type of jobs, even the construction jobs, so you know where they're located as well, because MD Anderson is growing, and so we want to make sure that you know where these projects at, what are we talking about. So anything that where you can learn, would appreciate it. Okay, does anybody have any more questions? Yes, Derek, we have first aid, CPR, BLS training and certification. I think I'll send you an email like how to do business with MD Anderson, but I do know that we use those. So you just need to register as a supplier, and then our buyers will go through it and try to fill it out. So anybody else has any more questions? Anything else you would like to ask before we say goodbye? Somebody just joined. Okay. How much different is hospitality construction from hospital construction? Who could give me that?
Wow, I've never been asked that question before. I can say that, but I will say this: we actually dabble in both, right? Obviously in healthcare and hospital and research areas, but we're also in the process of building a hotel. So if hospitality is your specialty, if that's your background, please reach out to Gabriella. It is quite different from hospital construction, specifically as it relates to the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design and qualifications, but there's some overlap, of course.
Well, that was a great question. Yeah, we do have that hotel. Forgot about that. Yes, so many projects out there coming out. So that was a great question. And thank you so much. Okay, any more questions before we leave? I want to make sure that I respect everybody's time. Oh my goodness, everyone is saying thank you. So I want to say thank you to Jay, Jim, Bob, and Daryl, and of course, Portia. I appreciate everybody. It was a great event. Thank you so much. I think, Portia, feel free to send my email around, even though it's in the presentation or whatever you send. Feel free if people wants to reach out to me, because I put it in the chat a few times, but continue to ask. And again, thank you everybody for attending. I'm very excited. I do see a lot of people here. And Portia, I'll leave it to you so you can close it.
Yes, so thank you all for attending, and thank you all for sharing the information to our certified firms and our hub. And we're just excited that that you all had this information to share, because sometimes we get so concentrated with minority-owned, woman-owned businesses that our hub certified firms are wondering, where do I have opportunities for us? And so we're glad that we were able to partner and to bring this to them. You all will receive an email from me that will have the guide as well as Gabriella's information so that you can reach out to her with any questions. So with that being said, thank you everyone. Enjoy this beautiful day that it is outside. If you don't get outside, just go out there and whirl around and then go back inside or something, but enjoy the day. And thank you all. Have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.